On the quiet evening of November 15, 2015, the serene neighborhood of Maplewood, New Jersey, was rocked by the chilling news of a gruesome murder. Emily Parker, a beloved mother of two, was found dead in her own home. The tragic discovery shattered the peaceful facade of the suburban community and uncovered a tangled web of deceit and betrayal that no one saw coming. Emily, 37, was known as a devoted wife and a caring mother. Her husband, Mark Parker, was a successful marketing executive, often described as charming and attentive. Together, they seemed to embody the picture-perfect family. They had two young children, Sophie, 8, and Luke, 5, and a beautiful home that was the envy of their neighbors. But beneath the surface, their marriage was far from perfect. Mark's demanding job often kept him away from home, and the couple had hired a young babysitter, Lily Thompson, to help care for their children. Lily, a 22-year-old college student, quickly became a fixture in their household. She was energetic, reliable, and the children adored her. Emily appreciated the help, especially with Mark's frequent absences. However, as time went on, Emily began to notice subtle changes in Mark's behavior. He became more distant, often making excuses to stay late at work or go on sudden business trips. He was more secretive with his phone, and there were unexplained charges on their credit card statements. Emily's suspicions grew, but she couldn't bring herself to confront him without proof. Then, one fateful day, Emily stumbled upon a series of text messages on Mark's phone. The messages, filled with flirtatious banter and intimate plans, were unmistakably from Lily. The discovery hit her like a punch to the gut. Her worst fears had come true. The man she had trusted, the father of her children, was having an affair with their young babysitter. Devastated and angry, Emily decided to confront Mark that evening. She had planned her words carefully, but when she faced him, her emotions took over. The confrontation quickly escalated into a heated argument. Mark denied everything at first, but as Emily threw the evidence in his face, he had no choice but to admit the affair. Mark pleaded with Emily, saying it was a mistake, a moment of weakness, but Emily was inconsolable. She threatened to expose him, to tell everyone about his betrayal. The thought of losing his family and his reputation terrified Mark. Desperation gripped him, and he begged Emily to stay quiet, to think of the children. But Emily had made up her mind. She told Mark that she would be filing for divorce and that he would never see the children again. The argument ended with Emily storming out of the house, leaving Mark to grapple with the consequences of his actions. That night, Emily went to stay with her friend, Karen, who lived a few blocks away. She was distraught and angry, venting to Karen about Mark's betrayal. Karen tried to console her, advising her to take some time before making any decisions. Emily agreed to sleep on it, but she was resolute. She would not let Mark get away with this. The next morning, Emily returned home to pick up her things. She was supposed to meet her lawyer later that day to discuss the divorce proceedings, but Emily never made it to that meeting. At around 11 a.m., a concerned neighbor noticed that the front door of the Parker house was slightly ajar. Curious, she peeked inside and was met with a horrifying sight. Emily was lying on the kitchen floor in a pool of blood, a large kitchen knife beside her. She immediately called 911. The Maplewood Police Department arrived within minutes. Detective Sarah Hayes, a seasoned investigator known for her sharp instincts, was assigned to the case. The scene was chaotic, and as the forensics team combed through the evidence, it quickly became clear that this was not a random attack. Detective Hayes noted the signs of a struggle in the kitchen. Broken dishes, overturned chairs, and blood splatter suggested that Emily had fought for her life. But what stood out to Hayes was the lack of forced entry. Whoever had done this had been let in or had a KEYS. The investigation unfolded. Mark Parker was the obvious first suspect. When questioned, Mark appeared devastated, insisting that he had nothing to do with Emily's death. He claimed that he had been at work all morning and only found out about the murder when the police contacted him. Detective Hayes wasn't convinced. She knew there was more to the story. The autopsy report would later reveal that Emily had been killed sometime between 9:30 and 10:30 a.m., a window of time when Mark could have easily left work unnoticed. But there were no witnesses or cameras to place him at the scene. As Hayes delved deeper into the couple's history, she discovered the affair with Lily. She decided to bring Lily in for questioning. When confronted, Lily broke down in tears. She admitted to the affair, claiming that she had fallen in love with Mark and had hoped he would leave Emily for her, but she swore she had nothing to do with Emily's death. Lily's alibi was that she had been in class that morning, and her attendance was confirmed. This left Hayes with a difficult question: if Mark and Lily were both innocent, who had killed Emily? The investigation was at a standstill. Hayes knew that time was running out, and she needed to find a break in the case. Little did she know, the truth was more twisted than anyone could have imagined. As Detective Hayes continued to piece together the events leading up to Emily's murder, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The lack of a clear motive or concrete evidence pointing to Mark or Lily left her frustrated, but she knew that cases like these often had hidden layers, and she was determined to peel them back one by one. 2 days after Emily's murder, Detective Hayes received a tip from one of Emily's close friends, Karen, the same friend Emily had stayed with the night before her death. Karen told Hayes about a strange encounter she had with Emily just before she left to go back home. Emily had mentioned something about finding out more than just the affair, something that could ruin Mark completely. Karen didn't know what it was, but Emily had seemed determined to confront Mark with this information. This revelation sparked a new line of inquiry. What had Emily discovered that made her return home despite being furious and planning to divorce Mark? Hayes speculated that whatever it was, it might have been the final push that led to her murder. Hayes decided to revisit the crime scene with this new perspective. She spent hours meticulously going through Emily's personal belongings, looking for anything that might point to what she had found. Then, in a drawer of Emily's desk, she found it, a hidden flash drive. The drive contained a series of incriminating emails and documents. It appeared that Mark was embezzling money from his company, funneling funds into a secret account. The emails showed that Emily had uncovered the financial discrepancies just a day before her murder. Hayes now had a motive. Mark's affair wasn't the only secret he was desperate to keep. If Emily exposed his financial crimes, it could destroy his career and land him in prison. Armed with this new evidence, Hayes confronted Mark again. This time, his demeanor was different. He was visibly agitated, his confidence waning under the weight of the revelation. When Hayes presented the evidence from the flash drive, Mark's face turned pale. He tried to deny it, claiming that the documents were fabricated, but Hayes wasn't buying it. The forensic analysis of the emails was already underway, and it would only be a matter of time before the truth came out. Hayes pressed him further, insinuating that Emily had confronted him about the embezzlement and that his anger had led him to kill her. Mark, now sweating profusely, refused to say anything more without his lawyer present. Hayes knew she was getting closer to the truth, but she needed something more concrete to tie him to the murder. That night, as Hayes reviewed the case files in her office, a thought struck her. If Mark had killed Emily in a fit of rage, there had to be evidence of it somewhere. She decided to pull the traffic camera footage from around the Parker residence on the morning of the murder. It was a long shot, but worth the effort. After hours of sifting through the footage, she found what she was looking for. A black sedan, matching the description of Mark's car, was seen leaving the Parker residence at around 10:20 a.m., shortly after the estimated time of death. The footage wasn't clear enough to identify the driver, but it placed Mark's car at the scene when he claimed to be at work. The next day, Hayes presented this new evidence to Mark's attorney. She laid out her theory. Emily had confronted Mark not only about the affair, but also about the embezzlement. In a desperate attempt to silence her and protect his own future, Mark had killed her, Faced with the mounting evidence, Mark's attorney advised him to come clean, but Mark still refused to confess. The prosecution was preparing to take the case to trial when, unexpectedly, a new witness came forward. It was one of Lily's friends from college, who had seen Lily in a heated argument with Mark a few days before the murder. The witness claimed that Lily had been upset, saying that Mark had promised to leave Emily, but was now backing out. The friend also mentioned something chilling. Lily had said, "If I can't have him, then no one can." This statement put a new spin on the investigation. Could Lily have been the one to kill Emily out of jealousy and rage? Was Mark covering for her, or were they both involved? Hayes knew she had to get Lily back in for questioning, but this time she needed to be smart. Hayes set up a scenario where she confronted Lily in the presence of Mark, showing them both the evidence she had gathered. She watched as Mark's eyes darted nervously between her and Lily, and then it happened. A subtle but telling glance from Mark to Lily, one that spoke volumes. Lily broke down first. She admitted that she had been at the Parker house that morning, but insisted that she had only gone there to talk to Emily. She said she wanted to apologize and explain herself, to make Emily understand that she never meant to hurt her. But when she arrived, Emily had already found the financial evidence and was furious. According to Lily, the confrontation quickly turned violent. Emily had lunged at her in a fit of rage, and in self-defense, Lily grabbed the knife. She didn't mean to kill her, she claimed. It had all happened so fast. Mark, she said, had only helped her cover it up because he was afraid no one would believe her. Hayes knew Lily's story didn't add up. The struggle in the kitchen and the angle of the wound didn't support her version of events. But she had achieved her goal. Mark's reaction confirmed her suspicion that he was protecting Lily and perhaps himself. The case had taken a dark, twisted turn. Hayes had two suspects with motives and no clear answers, but she was closer than ever to unraveling the truth, with both Mark and Lily now implicated. Detective Hayes felt she was on the brink of solving the case, but she needed to separate the truth from the lies each was spinning to protect themselves. The forensic evidence was clear. The struggle in the kitchen and the nature of the wounds indicated that the murder had been more calculated than a sudden act of self-defense. Hayes decided to go after the weakest link, Lily. She was young, scared, and clearly under immense pressure. Hayes had one more card to play. She called Lily in for another interrogation, this time without Mark present. She presented Lily with a final piece of evidence that she had been holding back, a set of blood-stained clothes found hidden in a trash bin near Lily's apartment. The forensic team had matched the blood on the clothes to Emily's, and the DNA evidence was irrefutable. Lily's face went white when she saw the photos of the evidence. Her hands shook as she reached for a glass of water, her eyes darting around the room, looking for an escape. Hayes leaned in, her voice calm but firm. "Lily, we know you were there. We have the blood evidence, the traffic camera footage showing your car near the house, and your argument with Emily. You can't keep lying. Tell me what really happened, or you'll go down for this alone." Tears streamed down Lily's face as she broke down completely. Between sobs, she confessed to everything. She had gone to the Parker house that morning, not to apologize, but to confront Emily. Mark had told her the night before that he couldn't leave Emily, that the affair was over. Lily was furious. She felt betrayed, used, and discarded when she arrived at the house. She didn't expect to find Emily there alone. Emily confronted her with the evidence of Mark's embezzlement and accused her of being part of the scheme. Lily panicked. The confrontation quickly escalated into a shouting match. Emily threatened to go to the police and to ruin both Mark and Lily's lives. In a blind rage, Lily grabbed the knife from the counter. Emily tried to defend herself, but Lily overpowered her. She stabbed Emily once in the chest, and in the chaos, Emily fell, hitting her head on the kitchen island before collapsing to the floor. The sight of Emily bleeding out in front of her snapped Lily back to reality. She realized what she had done and fled the scene, taking the knife and her blood-stained clothes with her. Lily insisted that Mark had no part in the murder itself, but she admitted that he had helped her cover it up afterward. Mark had arrived at the house shortly after the murder, having been worried about what Lily might do. When he saw the scene, he panicked. He couldn't afford another scandal, especially not one tied to his illegal activities. Together, they concocted the story of the burglary gone wrong, hoping it would be enough to divert suspicion. Armed with Lily's confession, Hayes knew she finally had the truth, but she wasn't finished yet. She needed to confront Mark one last time. She had Lily brought in, and she played the recording of Lily's confession in front of him. Mark's face turned ashen as he listened to Lily detail the events of that morning, every word tearing apart his carefully constructed facade. When the recording ended, Hayes locked eyes with Mark. "You knew exactly what happened, didn't you, Mark? You knew she killed your wife, and instead of coming forward, you helped her hide it. You thought you could protect yourself, but you only made things worse." Mark broke down, his shoulders shaking with sobs. "I was scared. I didn't want to lose everything. I thought if we could just make it look like a break-in. But you did lose everything, Mark," Hayes interrupted, her voice devoid of sympathy. "Your wife is dead, your children have lost their mother, and you're going to prison. All because you couldn't face the consequences of your actions." With Lily's detailed confession and the overwhelming physical evidence, both she and Mark were charged with Emily's murder. Lily, charged with first-degree murder, pleaded guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence. She was sentenced to 25 years in prison, eligible for parole after 15 years. Mark, charged with obstruction of justice and accessory after the fact, received a 10-year sentence. His reputation was shattered, and his career was over. The Parker children were placed in the care of Emily's parents, who struggled to explain to them why their mother was gone and why their father wouldn't be coming home. The once quiet and picturesque neighborhood of Maplewood was left scarred by the events that had unfolded. The community that had once looked up to the Parker family now whispered about the darkness that had hidden behind their closed doors. And Detective Sarah Hayes, having finally closed the case, knew that this was one story that would haunt her for a long time. In the end, the tragic story of Emily Parker's murder was a stark reminder of the deadly consequences of secrets and lies. What began as an illicit affair ended with a young mother dead, a babysitter imprisoned, and a family torn apart forever.